Wildcats, the animated series, explored. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Terry and this is Marvelous Videos. Today we're exploring a wonderful but largely forgotten TV show based on a comic of the same name, Wildcats. Wildcats was a Canadian-American series that aired from October 1994 to January 1995. It spanned across 13 episodes for one season. Created by Jim Lee and Brandon Choi in 1992 for Image Comics, it was eventually acquired by DC Comics. While the plot of the comic and the cartoon was pretty much the same, they toned down some of the fight scenes to make it friendlier for younger audiences. For example, Zealot, one of the characters, gently made people unconscious instead of decapitating them. The show follows a war between two alien races, the Cherubim and the Demonites. The fate of Earth and humanity ultimately rests on the outcome of their battle. With that being said, let's see what the show is all about. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now let's begin.
Meddling Cherubim.
Claws out, cats.
What the cartoon television series is all about. Before we talk about the TV show, let's talk comics. Jim Lee's Wildcats debuted in 1992 and quickly rose to prominence as one of the most iconic works to come out of the mid-90s comic boom. Jim Lee came up with the idea for Wildcats when several Marvel authors departed to start Image Comics. It was a huge success at first. Every time a new Image comic book was published, it was at the top of the bestseller list. At first, it seemed like a new comic company was about to take over the stuffy, out-of-date characters from the other corporations, as Image was outselling both Marvel and DC publications. However, the comics instead became the marquee work for Lee's expanding Wildstorm Studios brand and remained in production long after Lee sold the business to DC in 1998. Along with the legendary Jim Lee, many other well-known creators have contributed to the comic over the years, including Alan Moore, Joe Casey, Jay Lee, Steve Dillon, James Robinson, Grant Morrison, Sean Phillips, Travis Charest, Dustin Nguyen, and Chris Claremont. Although Wildcats and the other volumes in the Wildstorm line were discontinued by DC, the series had several standout jewels that comic fans have mostly forgotten. The show follows the lives of two warring extraterrestrial races, the Cherubim and the Demonites. They accidentally became the subject of many a myth and legend when they crash-landed on Earth centuries ago. The Cherubim have attempted to safeguard mankind ever since, and have even procreated with humans, creating super-strong hybrids. In contrast, the Demonites are a parasitic species that seeks to seize human bodies as host. The menace known as Demonites was faced by humans, the Cherubim and their hybrid children, known as Wildcats, in a unique partnership. This conflict still continues in secrecy in the present day, as per the show. There are several Demonites, extraterrestrial beings with human bodies. They occasionally resemble humanoid lizards. Other times they take the form of little gremlins who control your mind through stickers on your forehead. The Defenders of the Cosmos, also known as the Cherubim, are the ancestors of the Wildcats. They work together to defend Earth under Jacob Marlowe's leadership. The government hires the Wildcats, a covert action squad, to deal with threats, as the Wildcats have superhuman abilities thanks to their extraterrestrial ancestry.
I don't need medical treatment, but you will.
Spartan!
Stop them!
Main characters and cast of the show. The main characters of the show are Grifter, who was voiced by Colin O'Mara, Maul, who was voiced by Paul Mota, and Spartan, voiced by Rod Wilson. Void was voiced by Janet Lane Green, Voodoo by Ruth Marshall, Warblade by Dean McDermott, and Zealot was voiced by Roscoe Hanford. They operate under the leadership of Jacob Marlowe, voiced by Sean McCann. They have various superhuman abilities. Grifter is great with firearms and hand-to-hand combat. At the same time, Maul has the ability to transform and alter his size, along with superhuman strength and durability. Spartan is known for his cybernetic enhancement, energy blasts, and a big brain. He's skilled at hand-to-hand combat and using firearms. Since he's the brains, he also possesses good leadership qualities and tactical analysis skills. Void is a supercomputer with cybernetic enhancement and genius levels of intellect. She has the ability to detect demonites as well. Voodoo also possesses mental powers that allow her to shoot psychic blasts. Warblade is more like the computer nerd of the group who does things like computer hacking. He also has claws which are super cool. And now the last, Zealot. She is one of the coolest characters in the show. She's like a cherubim rendition of Wonder Woman. She used to train Amazonian-like warriors, even though they ultimately formed a rival team that worked for the demonites for money instead of being noble like the rest. It's still pretty cool. Zealot is trained in martial arts, weaponry, and swordsmanship. She has extended longevity, enhanced senses, superhuman stamina, enhanced durability, accelerated healing, along with superhuman agility and strength. Now, let's jump into the episodes and see what they were all about. The first episode is titled Dark Blade Falling. We start off with Jason Marlowe, who's in the process of curating his team of Wildcats. His team is almost complete. They just need one more missing piece, Reno Bryce. But Bryce isn't a hot commodity just for the cherubims. The demonites are also after him. We get a wonderful action scene within the first 5 minutes of the show. The demonites are trying their best to ambush Bryce, and the cherubims are trying to save him. However, all they end up doing is scaring Bryce when he finds the two groups of weird-looking people after him. They manage to save Bryce from the demonites and take him back to the headquarters, where Jacob Marlowe reveals the entire team to him and tells him all about the war between the cherubims and the demonites that has been going on for thousands of years. Using Void's abilities, Bryce's real powers come out and he transforms into Warblade. Unfortunately, Warblade isn't happy with this new change. He has claws for hands that he doesn't understand, so he runs away. Too bad that also doesn't help much. He runs and hides in his house, but the demonites are hiding there waiting for him. They put a little sticker on him, serving as a portal for the demonites to enter his body. Once they take control of his body, they're next seen somewhere in the icy north. Meanwhile, back at the Wildcats' headquarters, Bryce had left behind a little orb-like tracker which the demonite leader had put on him. Void helps locate Bryce and creates a portal for the Wildcats to go and rescue him. When they reach the facility where the demonites keep Bryce, they're pulled into a trap. However, Maul tosses Voodoo onto the ceiling before she can be trapped. She then finds Bryce and saves him by removing the sticker from his head. The two of them then head over to the trapped Wildcats and rescue them. But things don't slow down there. As the story continues, we see that the villain Hellspawn plans to capture Void using the orb-like tracker and drain the supercomputer of all her knowledge. To thwart Hellspawn's aggression, Maul transforms into his 30-foot-tall self and grabs him, while Warblade frees Void. They leave from there as Hellspawn despairs from his defeat. The next episode is called Heart of Steel, in which we get a look into Spartan's life as a man of steel. Spartan used to be human, but due to an injury, his body was put into stasis and his brain was put into an alloy body. But why are we talking about this? It's because this episode also features his old flame from when he was human, Karen, a researcher at Infidyne. At the start of the episode, the Wildcats stopped the Troika from stealing top-secret encoded data. Thankfully, the Troika weren't able to succeed because they couldn't decode the data. Void, the supercomputer, focuses on decoding the data while Karen talks to Spartan and tells him that the people at Infidyne can transfer his mind and reconnect it to his body. Meanwhile, the demonites kidnap Karen. They take her back to Infidyne, where they use her access key to decode the data. The demonites end up finding out about Project Alpha. This kind of messes with Spartan's head. While he feels loyalty towards his team, his heart still yearns for his humanity and love. His heart wins this battle in a moment of weakness, and he leaves the team in order to become human once again. He asks Jacob Marlowe to direct him to where his body is being kept. He goes to Halo Labs, where he finds his body kept in stasis. Meanwhile, the rest of the Wildcats go to the location of Project Alpha. Here they battle Hellspawn once again, but they don't do well without their leader, so Jacob goes and stops Spartan just before he can begin his transition from Steel Man to human. He convinces Spartan that the team needs him, and even more than the team, the world needs him because he can't have a quiet life full of love in a world run by demonites. With that, he goes to help his friends and manages to defeat Hellspawn. The episode ends with him breaking things off with Karen and staying true to his duties as one of the Wildcats. The third episode, Cry of the Coda, focuses on Zealot. In this episode we explore a new country, Yurgovia. Yurgovia is at war with various neighboring countries, and somehow those countries are experiencing massive earthquakes. Void theorizes that these earthquakes aren't natural, and Yurgovia probably has a new superweapon that can create these earthquakes. So Jacob sends the Wildcats as mercenaries to the war zone to stop the Demonites from getting their hands on the earthquake machine. When the team reaches the location, they're welcomed by a bunch of tanks and soldiers, but they're the Wildcats after all, so they manage to pretty much wipe the floor with them. However, they do encounter a woman, Artemis, using the weapon of the Coda. This really gets on Zealot's nerves, and she goes to settle an old score. Grifter wants to go after Zealot and help her, but Spartan stops him. He reminds him that Zealot can take care of herself, and that their duty is to their mission first. Too bad that it doesn't work. Grifter still runs away to help Zealot. Meanwhile, Zealot enters the Coda headquarters where she gets captured by Artemis. She's quite upset that the women she trained to defeat the Demonites are now paired up with them and helping them just to make a little money. Grifter also gets caught by the Coda while the rest of the Wildcats look for the weapon. The Wildcats are unable to find the location, but Zealot and Grifter manage to escape from their prison back at the Coda headquarters. They reach the Coda before leaving for the superweapon location, and Zealot gets a chance to make things right. But she can't bring herself to kill Artemis because it goes against her morals. Instead, she gives an inspirational speech and asks the rest of the Coda not to work with the Demonites. After that, she leaves with Grifter. Grifter contacts the rest of the Wildcats, informing them that they know the location of the superweapon. The Wildcats reach the location just as the Demonites do. They battle it out and the Wildcats seem to be losing when the Coda come to their rescue. It turns out that the speech Zealot gave actually worked. The two teams work together and defeat the Demonites, but Artemis claims that the Coda will continue to be freelance mercenaries and work with whoever matches their price. Zealot replies that as long as they work with the Demonites, they will be her enemy. However, the Wildcats don't think that this is the end. They know that Hellspawn is after something else, and with that, the episode ends. The fourth episode, The Evil Within, continues on the same note where they try to find out exactly what Hellspawn is after. He's after a secret spy satellite to locate the orb. In order to do so, he decides to take control of the President of the United States. He transplants a demonite into the president's body. Meanwhile, Voodoo and Zealot have a falling out where Zealot basically calls Voodoo useless in battle because she wasn't able to hold out on her own against the demonites. Voodoo is an orphan, so all this talk about her not being good enough in battle only triggered her issues of being abandoned. She goes to her old school, the only place where she ever felt at home. There she finds a letter that claims her parents are still alive and she can meet them. She leaves the headquarters, goes to Florida, and tells Maul not to tell anyone. Meanwhile, back at the Wildcats headquarters, Void tells Jacob that Voodoo has left, and she's sensing excessive demonite energy near the UN Plaza, where the president is going to give a speech that very afternoon. He gets attacked by the demonites, but the Wildcats save him. However, Hellspawn doesn't give up that easily. He sends a special agent who is possessed by a demonite. The demonite transfers the sticker onto the president and possesses him. He then tells his bodyguard that he'll fly to the satellite and stop the Wildcats. Back in Florida, Voodoo gets possessed by demonites too. She gets duped by a human, but thankfully Maul is a true friend and he comes to her rescue. He reminds her of their friendship and of their bond, which ignites something within her, and she manages to expel the demonite out of her body. She then goes with Maul to help the rest of the Wildcats. Unfortunately, the possessed president has instructed all his bodyguards to destroy the Wildcats, claiming that they're dangerous. So, the Wildcats battle the forces outside the satellite station. When they finally manage to make it inside, they find the possessed president trying to give over the control of the satellite to Hellspawn. Just then, Voodoo and Maul join them and manage to remove the demonite from the president's body and save the day. What happened to Wildcats the Animated Series? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Skeleton Warriors and Wildcats were all included in what was called the Action Zone Showcase, which employed an animated fly-through pre-credit sequence. Wildcats was aired on CBS and was supposed to compete with Fox's X-Men The Animated Series. However, it was cancelled after just one season in 1995. Around the same time, the Action Zone idea was formally discontinued, so the end of the series made more sense. Following its demise, the US network picked up Wildcats, which ran from 1995 to 1996 as a part of the USA Action Extreme Team block. Additionally, Wildcats Adventures, a companion comic, was released. The comic was essentially a retelling of the first 10 episodes of the show. In 1995, a companion video game with the same name and setting as Wildcats was also made. Wildcats was a really fun and intriguing series in both comic and cartoon form. It's a shame that comic fans don't remember it as dearly. There is some really good story development that at the time wasn't usual in animated programs, let alone live-action TV shows. Both the adversaries and the heroes have well-developed personalities in the show. There's also some character drama, with almost every episode being usually centered around a different character, which allows us to learn more about each of them in depth. What did you think about Wildcats? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.
Nice job, Cats.
Yep. Save the universe.
And do it in style.